Hello.
Hi.
How
Can
are you?
you hear me properly? Yes.
Yeah, hold on. Let me make it so that I can hear you in my AirPods. Okay, I think we got it. Yeah, it should be good now. Yeah. How are you?
Hi. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for giving us, like, being here to share your medicine with us, with me, with us,
Yeah.
whoever's gonna watch this. But I know
Yeah.
we've been arranging this for a while now, and I know that everything happens for a reason. So today is the time for being here.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. I'm doing so good. Did you celebrate Christmas? Did you have a good
Yes.
Christmas? Yeah, amazing.
I'm
Us
Italian in
too.
a very Italian way. So
Yeah. Are you in Italy or are you in the UK?
right now I'm in Italy.
Oh, beautiful. Wow, how magical. I have a few clients in Italy.
Yes. I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't been living here for 18 years. I just come back for like to see my family.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Where in Italy are you?
Close to Venice.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah.
What about
I
you?
haven't been. I'm in Florida. I'm in the US, and my family, my mother is Cuban, so we celebrate Noche Buena, and it's like this big, feast. So same thing, it's just this big, it's kind of like a 2-day celebration because we have Christmas Eve and then we celebrate
Yeah.
Christmas Day. And now I have a 4-year-old. So she's like, the years prior, she didn't fully understand. And then this year is like she understood Santa was coming and she didn't sleep the night before because she was so excited. So it's really magical.
Papa
And
Noel?
what is it?
Papa Noel? Do you say Cuba Papa Noel as well? Or is it just Spanish?
I've never heard that, so I don't know what that is.
It's like a Spanish way
We
because I live in Spain now. So it's the Spanish way. It's like they don't
oh,
say Santa, they say Papa Noel.
okay. That's so interesting because my partner and I, we've been looking into moving to Spain. We really want to leave the States. And yeah, because I'm like, my dad's family's from Spain
Hmm.
and I was raised Cuban, but I don't speak Spanish. My mom, like, I think that when you immigrate to the US, especially in the 60s, it gets very like
Yeah.
whitewashed. So we were never taught Spanish. And I am like having that desire to go back to like the motherland. So we've been looking at Spain, and Spain, it seems like it's a really easy process to move there and to
Hmm.
have dual citizenship or to live there. And it's also gorgeous. And um, it feels like a good anchor point where there's so many different areas that you can travel to.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
I mean,
so
in Europe,
amazing.
kind of everywhere where you go, it's like you can like travel 2 hours and you got completely different scenery, landscape,
Yeah,
culture, food, you know.
yeah,
That's a good thing of
yeah.
being here.
And it's just not like that in the US.
I know. I know I lived in New York for a while. I know.
Yeah. I mean, New York's cool, but it's like the same thing. It's just, and there's a lot of culture in New York, but it's just a different, I don't know, it's a different way of living. And we've lived in different spaces in the US. We've
Mm.
lived in Denver and we've traveled quite a bit here. And I'm like, let's go, let's leave the country. And I think it's good too for our daughter to experience different cultures. And I never had that growing up, and now doing this work and working with women all over the world, I'm like, it's so easy. Where in the US, it's like there's so much fear programmed into us, like, don't leave the country, like there's so much fear that's programmed into us around leaving the US. And now I'm just like, everyone does it. Like, everyone just like people just travel and they move countries, and it's totally fine. And everyone's safe, and it's not this big deal.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
proof of it. Like I lived in three, four different countries in 18 years of my life. So yeah,
Wow.
uh,
Wow.
you
Amazing.
can do it. You have huge shocks in
Yeah.
your nervous system every time you change it, but that's about
Yeah.
the elevation.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it right there. And doing this work, it's like, okay, I can handle that. Of course.
Bring it on. Come on, universe. I can take it.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing.
So yeah, let me tell us a little bit more about you, like a little bit more. Just what do you do? What are you bringing us here? What is your specialization in your role?
Yeah, um so who I am, so I am my name's Lauren, obviously. And I started connecting to the womb when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was really intentional, not only with my pregnancy. I mean, it was quite a shock. I wasn't planning on getting pregnant. And when I found out that I was pregnant, it was like this knowing of, okay, I'm meant to be a mother. I'm meant to now journey and initiate myself into mother. And um, I, before I even knew like what the womb work was, before I even knew, I mean, honestly, that I was meant to be doing this work, I was deeply spiritual, and I had connected to my body in ways of, cleaning up my diet and, like being really intentional with the foods I was taking in, and, you know, devoting myself to, the gym. And like it was a very physical, it was very much about how I was um showing myself in the world, right? It was a lot about like, okay, let's get the figure, let's get the body, like, let's be healthy. And I mean, my pregnancy rocked me. I was sick for about the first 20 weeks, with nausea. And honestly, I was essentially like bedridden. Like I couldn't do anything. All I wanted to eat was carbs. And it was a shock to my nervous system. I mean, it was a really big hit. And also, there was this call and this pull for me to birth a baby outside of the system, so outside of, the traditional hospital setting. And the first midwife that I met with out in Denver, she said, there's no way that you're going to birth the baby outside of the hospital. You're going to have a hospital birth. And I was just like, why? I'm perfectly healthy. I was 28 years old at the time. Like this doesn't make sense. Like this is my intention, this is my desire. So I really had to like unhook myself from what the illusion of safety was when it came to birth. And we moved back to Tampa because that's where my family is. And it was really important for me, especially with my first baby, to have the support of my family and have that community around me. And I found a beautiful midwifery, and they were really supportive with um, my decision to birth outside of a hospital and just holding this vision for me. So I spent a good majority of my pregnancy, 9 months, like really connecting into my body in a different way, and also, witnessing her expand and grow. And it wasn't the same, and I birthed my daughter out of hospital. And it was about a 2-day labor experience. And I hit this point where I was 9 centimeters dilated, and my midwife was like, okay, you're gonna, birth the baby. And I essentially stalled. I, started fighting my contractions. Elliot, my daughter, flipped on me. So I started having really intense back labor. And for those listening and watching, for those of you that have birth and have experienced back labor, I mean, it is the most excruciating pain that you can experience. I mean, it's quite intense. And I hit this point where I was in the water because that was the only place I could really get like a sense of relief. And my midwife came up to me, and and it was like 12 a.m. And I had already been in labor since the night before, and active labor since about like 12 p.m. earlier that day. So we're working with like 12, 13 hours of active labor. And she came up to me, and she like crouched down next to me, and she said, "You are fighting your baby coming out. You have to surrender, and you have to like really surrender to the contractions, and um, just soften into the body." And I took a moment and I leaned back in the water and everything stopped. The contraction stopped, the pain stopped, everything. Like I was just in this like bubble. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw and felt the presence of God, of Jesus, and Mother Mary. And up until that point, I never associated any divine energy with God because I had been raised Catholic. So I really like deconditioned and unhooked myself from
Mhm.
the patriarchal conditioning of what God is, what the divine is. And I, mumbled to myself and to my daughter, I said, I'm ready for you. Like, it's time for you to come out. I'm ready to meet you. And she did. And I mean, I birthed her on a birthing stool, and it was just like the most beautiful thing in the world. So that was my initiation, my first big initiation into this work.
Mm.
And, around the same time, I had decided, okay, I want to be home with her. I want to, be as present as I can, be as a mother. And also, I know that being a mother is not all that I'm here to do. I mean, it is my first job always and my most important job. But I don't know if it's being a manifesting generator and human design or, all of these other things that come into play. I was like, there's something else I have to do. So I started my coaching business and it was very much just manifestation and mindset. And um, I won't say it's surface level because I think that that work is really important, but it was very much just like scratching the surface of my own evolutionary journey. And then I noticed working with clients, like I was only able to get them so far. So I started healing because I realized I was like, okay, I now have this little girl that I birthed into the world. And I realized I was like, okay, trauma is generational. I'm picking up on things from my mother's lineage. I don't want to pass down to her. There's things that I'm being asked to heal. So I really started going into, the world of trauma healing and somatics and understanding the body. And also, I was Reiki attuned and I started understanding energy and, the quantum and like all of these worlds just started dancing together. The ethereal world, my understanding my body in a new way, being initiated even deeper as mother, and this desire to not only heal myself for my daughter, but also, this big pull to work with women to shift the collective. So all of that has led me to this point where, my work is womb based, it's body based, it's understanding how trauma, works and lives in the body and being a support and a guide for women to unravel those stories, unravel those loops, and essentially center themselves back into their truth, center themselves back into their womb and their heart, and anchor them back into their bodies. So I tend to work with coaches, entrepreneurs, um, just women who generally are really high achievers. And um, for the most part, it's like they've achieved so much, but there's a disconnect. There's something missing, whether it's in their relationship, whether it's with themselves. There's always that need to do more, to be more, to achieve more. And I always say I'm like the person that comes in and just like softens it. And it doesn't mean there's not more that gets to be created. This is where the pleasure work comes in, because once we find safety and anchoring, it's, we can hold that more, but it doesn't feel like this anxious load that we're carrying around. It's just like, okay, this is just what I get to be. So what I call myself, well, on Instagram, I'm the pleasure priestess. And, I don't take that word priestess very lightly. It's not like a marketing term for me. I was really intentional with creating that because I am devoted to the feminine path and the mysteries of Mary Magdalene and, the wisdom of the womb and this
Mhm.
ancient knowledge that has been wiped away from us, and we're reclaiming again. I am, a somatic healer. I'm a body-based guide, and I work with women energetically, reconnecting them to their pleasure, to their yonis, to their vulva, their desires, and then also helping them grow and expand their legacy, their missions, their companies, this vision that they have. Um, So yeah, that's who I am and a bit of why. Like why I always think it's so important for people to understand the story because it's trendy right now. I will say this work can feel trendy. I don't, I think women are waking up to it. It's just like we've been so suppressed for so long that there's like
Yeah.
really this like it's like something's being unleashed.
Mhm.
But this was my journey and my initiation into it. And obviously there's threads and other pieces, but yeah, that's who I am right now. This is the evolution of my work at this point.
I mean, that's awesome. But then, like, what while you were talking about it, because I don't want to go through with all the questions that I've got. I want to make it more as a chat.
Yeah,
Because to me, it reflects a lot of this journey. And then you talked about ambitious women, which in the process of women empowering themselves in history, I think there was kind of like a deviation into like, okay, you are empowered now, you can be ambitious, you can have a career. But it went through a very masculine kind of energy of doing it, which
yeah,
still didn't bring the woman to empower herself, but to like slide away from empowering yourself and have a career, but through bringing through the feminine energy.
yeah,
Is that something that can be, because you work with a lot of women like that? And I was saying that was my personal experience. I was highly driven, highly
yeah,
ambitious, but very in a very mannish masculine way of being. And I had to just redone myself, like die completely and reconnect to all the feminine side. And body wise,
yeah,
I always had problem on my left side, which I think is the
mm,
part where the feminine energy flows.
yeah,
And now reconnecting with it, I feel like in my business, everything changed in the way that I do, in the way that I connect with my clients. But I saw a huge change in my all my relationships around me. Like
yeah,
everything just got drawn to me instead of me being there an action taker to create, to keep it. But what I wanted to say is that, is there like a little bit of danger, let me say this, when we call ourselves highly ambitious and just instead of connecting to our power, it actually disconnects us
yeah,
from our center and our energy, or empowerment. Yeah.
yeah. So I think, the women's liberation movement in the US in the 1960s was monumental, right? For women saying as a whole, we get a place, like we can have our own bank account, we can own property, we can, you know, we can operate in a way that can put us into this very masculine dominated world, right? We can do that. And I think that what we've witnessed in doing so, because it was so, our role was to only be mother up until that point. Our role was to be a good wife. Our role was to be a housekeeper. And it put us in a box. And then we kind of swung the pendulum the other way and we said, okay, well, we can actually now be in the work field and we can now operate as men. And also, what happened is we disconnected ourselves. So we started seeing physically, just like you experience on the left side. And I work with women all the time where, the body speaks in code. So, the left side is the feminine side, and she will call to us, especially when she's not feeling seen, she's not feeling expressed, she's feeling shut down. Well, this has happened on a global scale where we're seeing, you know, diagnoses and infertility and women completely disconnected sexually and just all of these things, feeling numb, feeling anxious, because we've tried to now fit ourselves into the box and into the mold that, well, if a man can do it, I can do it. And that's how I was raised. I'm a 90s baby. So I was raised with that of, I'm pretty sure there was like a Serena Williams commercial, like a Nike commercial that was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And also, we're not meant to operate that way, right? We work on essentially 28-day cycles that can fluctuate. And we're not men, right?
Exactly.
We have wombs and we bleed and we ovulate, and our bodies are cyclic and our way of being is cyclic. And we go through natural deaths and rebirths over and over and over again as
Mhm.
women. And I think the biggest thing that happens is because we try to fit ourselves into this box of being masculine and, doing things like a man and saying that that was women's empowerment because we can do it like him. And, we lost our wisdom. We lost our connection to our intuition and our connection to ourselves. So I believe like this is what's kind of resurrecting right now is we're like, okay, yeah, I can be the boss CEO running a company. We both do that. You and I are both CEOs and we operate and we run a companies. And also, how can we do this in a way? And I think that this is the question that's like really resurfacing in our industry is like, how do we do this in a way that is sustainable and satiating and brings us back into pleasure that really gives us space for our heart to lead, for our pussies to lead, for our wombs to lead, for our bodies to lead, our intuitions to come back online again. And we're realizing like we're not supposed to do it like a man. Like
Mhm.
we're just not meant to operate that way. So I have a lot of you know I think it was another way for the patriarchy to hijack true women's empowerment. And, we see this a lot with a lot of areas. We see it with, access to birth control is seen as women's empowerment. And yet, birth control literally destroys the feminine body, right? We see it with like all of these things that are called women's empowerment, and yet they are disconnecting us and destroying our bodies as women. So we have to be willing to, really sit with ourselves and say, what's the truth of this all?
Yeah.
And is this actually an illusion of empowerment or is this actually true empowerment? And when we do this and we connect deeper into the feminine and into the womb, we realize that a lot of these illusions of empowerment are just that, they're illusions. They're not truth. And our only truth is, especially as feminine essence beings, women, is that, you know, we have, wombs. I'll speak for a moment because this is a question that comes up a lot. What if I don't have a womb, right? What if I have experienced a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy? Or what if my body doesn't work the same? What if I'm experiencing cysts and fibroids and all of these things, right? It's like we can still connect to womb consciousness. We come from womb consciousness, right? We
That's
are womb
really interesting.
consciousness.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting because, like, while you were mentioning it, like, I've got a friend that had part of the uterus removed for some health reasons, and that just came to my mind. It's like, what if somebody doesn't have it, but you can still reconnect to that consciousness and energy, right?
Yeah. And I work with a lot of women with that because, um, with women that have experienced hysterectomies or partial hysterectomies, or even if, even just experiencing like really painful bleeds or having, any like PCOS or any of those things, it's like
Ah, it's
we
me.
feel, yeah, there's a level of I can't trust my body
Mm,
anymore. Like my body isn't working in the way that it's supposed to. My body isn't working and there's pain associated. And then when, parts of our body are cut out of us and removed from us, there's deep grief that's associated with
yeah.
that. There's identity that's associated with that. I mean, I've had women come to me with full hysterectomies and they have told me like I don't even feel like a woman
Mm,
anymore. And we've had to really work with, and it's so beautiful when they're like, I feel more connected to my body now than I did when I actually had a uterus, when I had ovaries, and when I had all these parts that were, you know, connected to my womb, because there's an energetic imprint that's still there that we can reassociate ourselves to and reconnect to and then work with, you know. And there's also a grief process. You lost a part of yourself. right? There's a grief of the possibility of maybe becoming mother. There's a grief of the possibility, there's grief associated with that. So in the feminine work, I mean, that is what we're actually accessing is in order for us to connect to pleasure, we have to be willing to experience pain. We have to be willing to experience grief. We have to be willing to face death, right? We see that in the birth experience. In the birth experience, we face death, right? And it's why most women are so quick to numb out to that experience. Just give me the epidural, just give me whatever it is so I can numb out to the experience instead of actually facing that through the birth portal of life is also the possibility and the realness of death, right? And it actually happens energetically as well, because when we shift from maiden to mother, there's death to the maiden. The maiden dies and we become mother, in parts. It's just like and I think that that's what we experience is we're dancing within realms when we connect to the womb, where the veil is so thin within the womb, where it's a physical and also it's the ethereal, right? It's the cosmos, and that's like really what we're reorienting ourselves to. So we're rooting ourselves back into the earth in order to access what is beyond us, what is beyond perception, what is beyond reality. And that's what creates possibility. It's what creates you know ecstatic pleasure, and just this essence of I'm here, I get to be speaking back to the high achievers. It's like you just get to be you. It's why your relationship shifted when you started doing the feminine work, because and I see it all the time. It's like there's nothing specific that you can like probably pinpoint of how this shifted, but it's like because your anchor and your wholeness has shifted, the way that you magnetize people in, the way that you hold people, the way that you work with people, it all shifts, it all ripples from that space.
Wow, I had so many questions in my head right now. It's just like a lot of information that I love. No, I love all of this. Um, the recap on what you were saying is like when you say exactly like connecting to the womb, how does that work? What does that really mean for somebody that maybe is listening to this for the first time or had a glimpse here and there because the universe put you things a
Yeah.
little bit until you just embrace it and use it for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Can I guide you so that then
Okay.
as they're watching and listening, you can also follow along. But I'm just gonna invite you in, place both hands on your womb space, on your low belly. And you can close your eyes if that feels safe. And just beginning to allow the breath to soften. So taking a deep breath in through the nose. And when you exhale, unhinging the jaw, letting your lips part, just letting yourself soften for a moment. And just slowly seeing if you can begin to bring this breath down into your womb space. Without force, without manipulation, just noticing what's here for you, what's available for you right now in this moment as you connect to your womb. And asking your womb, how does she feel in presence with you? Does she feel connected? Does she feel safe? Maybe she feels unseen or unheard. Just letting her speak to you for a moment. Now asking her, is there anything that she's needing of you? And if you could hold the highest vision for you in your womb, what would that look like? What would that feel like? Just letting all of that marinate in, Taking 2 more anchoring breaths into the body, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And slowly, when you feel ready, you can come back into the room.
Wow, amazing. It always I think there's gonna be something like really difficult, but it's just like just be there, be present. It's 1 second. I mean,
Yeah.
probably some people I think could have difficulties at the first times that they try. Obviously, I have more experience into connecting to my intuition,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and
amazing.
I think that's just it. There's, 2 parts to that is it's really simple, connecting to the womb. It's honestly our most natural state of being. So it's really simple practices. It's hands-on womb a lot of time, just taking time to listen, to hear her. And then it's also, being really patient with yourself because there can be a disconnect and there's no judgment with that. There's no, it should be easy. It should be effortless. It's just like, okay, today it feels hard to connect to her. Today, she doesn't feel seen. And it's really attuning ourselves to her needs every single day. And that's really, the devotional practice of connecting to the womb is, how does she desire to move? How does she desire to nourish herself? How does she desire to speak? How does she desire to be seen? What's the work that she's desiring to do? What's the program that she's desiring to release? I mean, when clients come into my world, it's like everything that they create comes from the womb because the womb is creation. So we're really attuning ourselves back into our most organic life force, and that's the womb's energy. But it does take time and a lot of slowness and presence to really, anchor back in and trust her a bit because
Yeah.
sometimes what she's desiring is not what your mind is desiring. And there's this tug of pull, and it's just, I mean, I've had launches completely shift because my womb's been like, yeah, that's not how we're going to do it. Like, that's not, nope. And, you got to kind of have to take a moment and be like, okay, I'm going to trust this. And it's really fascinating because once you do, it's like your whole world shifts. You're like, oh, okay, I get this now. Like this, this is more than my mind could even rationalize or create for me. This is, it is just so much more. And yeah, but it's a really simple practice. And it's just,
Could that be defined, sorry, as because obviously when I talk to my intuition, I always feel more like on a chest level and then the whole body feelings, obviously. But is a direct intuition or is it some type of different energy that works with it as well?
yeah, so there's a few ways to look at this. So the first one is in Chinese medicine, there is a direct line between the heart and the womb space. So the heart and the womb are very much connected, and that line of connection cannot be manipulated by outside forces, by anything external. So even if you go to an acupuncturist, they can't manipulate the line. It's only something that can happen internally.
Okay.
So that's why a lot of times we feel this heart expansion when we connect into the womb and we feel this, connection point and our heart is really our access point into, the 5D, the quantum, like the ethereal realm,
Mhm.
divine consciousness, all of that. And then our chakras mirror one another. So our womb is held in the sacral chakra. That's just the chakra that's associated with it. And the mirror for our sacral chakra is our third eye. So what tends to happen a lot of times, and I work with, as well, highly intuitive, highly spiritual women that tend to live outside of body, right? It's like, okay, I can go into the astros, I can channel, beautiful. Not saying that this is wrong or bad, or I love it. I'm so here for it. And also, it's kind of a trauma response because the body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
So so what we want to do is we want to take this intuition that lies in the third eye that is still searching for something outside of us for validation, something external to cling to, and we want to anchor it back down into the sacral, into the womb, because it's only from that space that truth lies, because it's our truth, right? And then we're not looking for the tarot cards to tell us the way. We're not looking for, the psychic to tell us the way. We're not looking for anything external. We can still channel those things. We can still work with those things. We can still receive from these things. And also, do we have enough sovereignty within ourselves? Because when we connect to the womb, we're connecting to self sovereignty, body sovereignty, and heart sovereignty, all of that. It's like we become sovereign bodies, and we can become so connected to what our truth is, and so anchored into our authentic expression, our authentic way of being, that nothing outside of us can manipulate that, can change that. Right. So I wouldn't say that they're different. I think that they're the same. What we see a lot is there isn't integration a lot of times of the intuition, of the psychic gifts and the channeling into the body, because there's this fascinating book, um, The Five Personality Patterns, and it talks about how when we experience different levels of trauma, our energy basically will move in different ways. And for most women, what happens is we move outside of the body. So we either move into super analytical overdrive, right? The women that are, and I'm sure I'm speaking to some of you, where it's just like we're thinking all the time, we're anxious, we're like, we got to do this, we're super analytical, we're always using our logical brain. Amazing. It served you up to some point, right? It's kept you safe up to some point. And then there's the other side, like I was saying, that it's like we've just completely gone into the psychic realms. We've completely detached from the body altogether. We're just like, okay, I'm just going to be out here because being in body isn't safe.
Yeah.
When we connect into the womb, we're creating safety in the body. We feel safe in the body again. So we can still do all these things. We can still use our logical mind. We can still connect to our intuition and, to the cosmos and all of these things, but it's integrated in the body. And that's the human experience, is
Yeah.
can we experience these things and still be present in body?
Yeah. Do you think that like the connection to the womb is a grounding technique?
Yeah.
Because obviously we know grounding, well, we, maybe me and you, maybe who's listening, with grounding techniques, we're creating the trunk, the connecting to the earth, to the core of the earth from your feet. But just doing these exercises of connecting with your wound is a grounding exercise.
Yeah, you're rooting to rise. So let's go into the feminine root system for a moment, because this is taking the womb. When we work with the womb, we're also working with the yoni. So a big part of my practice is actually doing hands-on work, somatic experiencing in the womb space, in the womb land, or in the womb landscape, which is the yoni, the vulva, the pussy. So we're using touch, sound, breath, awareness, and movement to actually go into the womb and begin to restructure the fascia matrix of the body. And it's really light touch. But when we're working with the feminine root system, we're naturally coming back into the earth, right? We're naturally grounding ourselves not only back into us, but back into the mother, right? So there's this natural grounding. I mean, it's the most grounded that we can be is when we're in the root space, when we're in the feminine roots. But again, there's trauma, there's reasons why we disassociate.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sexual trauma, sometimes it's, just exploration in general is very taboo, so you
For me, like, because I want to bring as more vulnerability as possible in this
yeah,
episode. For me now, you're talking about it, I'm very aware that even like talking about it, it triggers something in me that I'm aware of, because I went to a non-school and I come from a very Catholic culture. And
yeah,
everything, especially sexual or feminine or related to that, it's not even a taboo. It's nasty. It's
yep,
disgusting. You don't do that
it's
because
dirty.
otherwise you're a bad girl. Like all of
Hmm.
that. So despite me being very aware of it, my subconscious still have these triggers onto that whenever time there is like talking about it, connecting to it. And that's my work that I'm doing to it, to take it away, not just from here, but like from my
Yeah.
subconscious, from my inner child. And
Yeah.
that,
Well, you have to neutralize, and I can totally relate to that. I went to Catholic school for 13 years, and I was also raised in a, pretty strict Spanish household. So touching your yoni was super taboo. It was dirty, it was nasty. And, but there's a desire there. Like, even as little girls, there's a desire to just touch her, just to explore her, not for, sexual needs. It's just like, okay, what is this? Like,
yeah,
this is a part of my body. Like, why is it here? What is this? So that's really taboo. And then, cover your body. Don't wear certain clothes, don't express yourself in certain ways, don't speak in certain ways. All of this disconnects us from our feminine roots,
yeah,
and our feminine roots is the access point to all of our on their chakras, to our voice, to our expression, to our ability to, set boundaries and expectations and speak to, our partners and our friends and our loved ones. Like, this is what I need in relationship. This is what I desire in relationship. To run companies that don't drain us, to run companies that are fulfilling, that are actually ours, right? Like, all of this stems from the feminine root system. And we have to go on this journey of kind of like deconditioning and working with the little girl and being like, okay, it's actually safe for us to touch ourselves, not for sexual. And like, this is where I think that there's a big disconnect sometimes in this work, because we're so we're taught, and it's reinforced in us with the porn industry and just, in Hollywood, is like, go fast, go hard. And when we do hands-on experiencing, when we do somatic experiencing, what we're actually doing is we're neutralizing the nerve endings so that we're not overstimulated, or that we can resensitize us again. Because some of us, and a lot of my clients that I work with, it's like they feel nothing. They're, intimate with their partners and nothing's happening. They literally will disassociate in the whole experience, right? Or it's a performance, or we're just performing. We're just, acting because this is what I'm supposed to do. And there's no actual connection of like, what do I actually want in the bedroom? What I actually desire. And this mirrors out in life, where we're so disconnected from ourselves and from our true desires that we're just achieving because that's what we're supposed to do. Right. So, what I always say is like, if this is an activating conversation, is like, hold yourself and let your little girl just know, like, it's safe to even have these conversations. This is how we begin to unravel and detach from these stories. And then with the Catholicism piece, I am a student of Mary Magdalene, and Mary Magdalene was a sex alchemist. She was deemed by the Catholic Church as a whore, as someone that was dirty, as someone that was less than. But when we actually reorient ourselves to the truth of Mary Magdalene and her relationship with Yeshua, her relationship with Jesus, she was his woman. She was his partner. They used sexual alchemy together. She was who he resurrected to, right? She was his, first apostle. And yet we're told all these stories that she is dirty, that the only holy woman is the Virgin Mother Mary,
the only
right?
one that hasn't had sex to have Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, like, think about that conditioning, that you are only enough, that you are only worthy if you are pure. And it's just not true. And it's very systematic. All of those stories are put into place to continue to disconnect us from our body, because the patriarchy knew how powerful the feminine was through her intuition, through her wisdom, through she's an oracle, she's a wise woman, she's a medicine woman. She's, our sexual energy is our purest energy. It is our life force. We can create and we can destroy within the womb. There's a reason why we have been told that to look at ourselves, to touch ourselves, to explore our bodies is dirty and nasty, and that we are sinful,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, I agree with that. That's amazing. Like for me, like I got so much into Lilith as well, because I was very much into my birth chart in general. And one of the episodes I brought with an astrologer. If you see the Lilith is the your shadow part, because then I started researching on Lilith because it was like calling to me. And she was actually she's called in all the cultures and religions like a demon. But if you dig
Hmm.
deeper, she was the first wife of Adam. Adam?
Yeah.
No. Do you say Adam in English? Adam and Eve?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
She was actually the first wife, but she was thrown out of heaven because she didn't want to be under the rule of a man. She wanted to have her
Hmm.
whole like rules and boundaries and be her own individual. So because a
Yeah.
woman wants to have her own power, she's like, you out. And then because you're out, and being Lilith, the power of creation, you can never destroy her because she will always recreate herself because she's the goddess of creation. And then to have women fearing that, they created a demon around this figure. And for me, it was so like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Once again, a powerful woman that wanted to be empowered herself, then it's like, no, you don't obey to us, then you're a demon. So people are gonna
Yeah.
fear you and not follow actually creation and the dark
Yeah.
side, the energy of the feminine.
Yeah, it's just, the snake's energy is another beautiful example of this
Mhm.
is we see the snake and we think that it's, connected to Satan and to darkness and to evil. And the snake is Kundalini energy, right? We have the two snakes rising up within the Kundalini. And that's the feminine energy. It is life force, it is creation energy. And again, like there's always a question of like, why? If this has been so systematically constructed for us to disconnect to this and for us to fear this, the question is why. And I believe the answer is because a woman embodied, a woman in her power, a woman that knows what is true is is the most powerful thing. I mean, we see it with the number 13, right? Venus Day, the 13th, Friday the 13th is actually one of the most holy feminine days, but we see it as, you know, a satanic, like
Yeah.
off, dark energy day where bad things are going to happen. The 13th is the number of the divine feminine. There's actually, I've just been diving into this and I hosted an event on the winter solstice. And one of the speakers was teaching us about true astrology. And there's actually 13 signs in astrology. And the sign that was taken out is I'm probably saying this wrong, but I think it's Ophiuchus. Yes, I think it's that. And she is the feminine, she is the dark feminine that was taken out of astrology. But if we add back in the 13 signs and we, go back, like our calendar should be 13 months. If we did 13 months, it would be a perfect calendar. And she was saying there's 13 plates on the back of a turtle. There's 13 tectonic plates on earth. Like just this number 13 in general is so holy, but it's like we take like it's all been disconstructed. So we're living in this false illusion of truth. And this false illusion of truth that we're living in is so deeply rooted in fear. Right.
Mhm.
And we saw that in 2020 when we were just bombarded with fear.
Yeah.
Right. We were bombarded and we were told that the only way to be safe was to look outside of us. The only way to be safe was to extract our power from us.
Mhm.
And that's when a lot of people started waking up and we started saying, wait a second, that's not true. Like, we actually are the most powerful beings. And also, fear is meant to keep us locked into these codes of scarcity, of not enoughness, of feeling unworthy, of feeling like we constantly have to hustle and do and fight to survive. And that whole paradigm right now is being dismantled, right? That whole way of being is being dismantled. And what's happening is we're seeing a rebirth into a new way of being. We're seeing a rebirth of the new earth. And all of these, feminine leaders are coming out and saying like, hey, like this is not the way we should be operating government. This is not the way that money should be, moving. This is not the way that we should be, raising our babies and birthing and structuring society. Like, this is not, first of all, it's not sustainable. Second of all, when we connect to this, true feminine energy, we think of the collective. like if one child is suffering, the whole world is suffering. As one mother is suffering, the whole world is suffering. So we're literally reorienting ourselves to the mother is the center of the universe, the mother. And it's so fascinating is in, the womb, we also physically have to reorient ourselves to the cervix energy, because the cervix is the portal of birth. And the cervix is connected to the black hole energy. And what is the center of the universe? A black hole. And what happens on the other side of the black hole, no one really knows, but we do know that there's two truths. It's destructive and it's creative. And that is the essence of the feminine, is destruction and creation. So it's like this conversation of womb consciousness and the feminine is so fucking big.
Yeah.
It's so big. And I think that we connect into this work, and we're like, okay, I'm just gonna like heal myself and connect to pleasure. And then we start to like see the ripple, and we're like, oh, like this is actually how we change. This is how we put money into women, the hands of women that are intentional, that are heart-centered, that want to shift the way the collective actually operates.
Yeah.
And instead of having dirty white men run the world and tell us how things should be. So it's like,
Do
it's
the
really, really,
podcast.
yeah, just like, and we're all just little puppets in their world. And so it's all shifting, but like this timeline goes back. These stories go back. And this is why I love teaching the mysteries of the feminine, because we learn them. And, we remember, the times of Atlantis and the times in Lemuria where the feminine actually reigned, where the matriarchy was alive and well. And we remember, what actually happened in order to take that power away from the earth. And that's another thing, is when going back to like the rooting and the anchoring of the feminine root system, is like we reorient ourselves back into the mother earth. And earth right now is, I believe she's healing because we're healing,
Yeah.
but she is a mirror for us, and her destruction that we've witnessed, and um, just the devastation that's happening, is a reflection of what is happening internally to us as a collective of women within our wombs.
But also,
So as we
yeah,
go
and
on.
also, like a proper disconnections to like while you're saying this, it's so interesting. My experience is like we women, when we used to be the healers, even like the witches, it wasn't witches of dark, it was just women healing through the connection to nature, because everything is connected.
Yeah,
And like for me, I started holding um full moon ceremonies with women in Barcelona face to face. And the more I did that, the more I did my ritual, my period connected exactly with the moon cycles. Like
yeah,
every full moon, my period was coming, and it was like 28 days perfect. And then it was like, and then what you were saying is like the connection to the earth is missing, because we've been completely disconnected to what
yeah,
actually is. Everything is a beautiful puzzle that if you take one piece away, it doesn't work properly anymore. And then
yeah.
through, as you say, in the reconnection with the feminine energy, with ourselves, is reconnecting with nature. And reconnecting with nature is a healing for ourselves, but healing for earth at the same time.
Hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm connected to what you just said right now with this, because I think it's I mean it's beautiful. Just
Yeah, and using going, speaking to your period, and using your womb blood is such a powerful way to reconnect to the earth and to give your fertility back into her. So I have a ritual every time I bleed where I collect my blood, and I set my intentions and my vision, and I give it back to the mother. And it's such a beautiful way for me to surrender back into her, and to really like anchor back into the safety that I'm held by her, that everything's happening because of her. And, it's this journey isn't selfish. And I think that that's something that a lot of women struggle with, because we've been told, if we take care of ourselves, if we nourish ourselves, if we connect to pleasure, then we're selfish. And I believe what I know to be true is that the more I do this work and I connect to pleasure and my body, and my womb, the more that I can give to others without feeling depleted. And it's just creating this cosmic ripple back out into the universe, back out into, the Mother Earth. And, there's something so powerful as well about using herbs and,
Mhm.
tinctures and like getting our hands dirty and gardening and like really just like coming back into her roots, like coming back into her soil, into her grounding and her waters and all of it. I mean, there is something so perfect about Mother Earth. And yet again, we are so conditioned to believe that even she's not enough, that she doesn't have enough resources, that she can't provide for us, that, she's on fire, that, she and my curiosity is always like, what if she's actually doing exactly what she needs to do to cleanse herself so that she can be reborn for, this new paradigm that we're shifting into. And what if that's the illusion that there's not enough resources, that there's not enough to take us away from the infinite abundance that she naturally holds? That is also within us. And I think that that's what's really beautiful of, you know, I, as much as the womb work is trauma healing and, deconditioning and connecting to our inner child and looking at our shadows, it's like, and also we really anchor back into we are infinite, we are abundant, we are creative life force energy, and everything that we desire, we can actually create. And there's so much power in just like rooting that back into the body and anchoring all that in, because then we stop extracting from ourselves and we stop giving ourselves away and depleting our life force.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to bring now, it's when you said the healing process as well, is healing traumas, but it's beautiful what you mentioned before. It's like you healing as well the karmatic energy that you bring with you. And for me, something that of discovering the healing the wound was finding out through an astrology reading that because I got polycystic ovaries, and he didn't know. It's like, you got some problems in your ovaries. I was like, yeah. He said that comes because your when you were in the womb of your mom, there was a moment at which she was really, really scared. I don't know if probably losing you, but like all that energy of being scared, of fear, got transmitted to you. And because it was in the wound, you have in the wound you, and you have to heal that fear that's being transmitted from her to you. And that's how you can heal yourself. And then I called my mom,
Mm,
but she never told me. She told me everything. Like, the typical Italian mother that tell you all the details about everything. And
right.
it was like, were you ever scared when you were pregnant? She's like, yeah, I was really scared because they told me that I could have lost you like one moment. I was like mind blowing how actually body wise and in the womb we carry with us wounds and traumas that don't belong to us, but is into a feminine way to bringing it through generations.
Yeah.
And it comes a moment that we
We
can
carry 7 generations worth of trauma on our mother's
I
lineage.
understand everything.
We carry seven
Wow.
generations imprinted on us in our womb from our mother's line. And there's so much power in that. I mean, there's a lot of gold in that. My mother is an immigrant from Cuba, and there's just so much there. So I have found a lot of gold within them, and also I've had to heal a lot of things. The fear of being seen, the fear of speaking my truth, like all of these things, right? So yeah, it's so, again, it's so deep, but our mother imprints on us and we carry that, I mean, physically. So like the physicality of this is our eggs are created in our grandmother's womb. So when our grandmother is pregnant with our mother has produced her eggs already, right? So we are already established within our mother before she's even born. That's how this lineage works. And that's why this work is so important. But what's really fascinating is we also imprint within our wombs 7 generations after us. So by us doing this work, we are shifting. So by me doing this work, I'm shifting what is available for my daughter, for her daughters, for her, you know, her daughter's daughters, like this is how this ripple works. And a lot of times it is like you know, you're, you know, experiencing the cysts and the fibroids and the PCOS and, you know, all of these things that are happening within the womb space, and the disconnect is a lot of times it's not even our trauma. It's this unconscious disconnect that's stored within our womb space. And this was like the big shift for me is I thought it was all mindset work. Like I was like, I'm just gonna, you know, mindset my way out of it. And I kept hitting blocks and I couldn't like mindset my way out of it anymore. I couldn't like ascend myself out of my body because my body and my womb was speaking to me,
Yeah.
right? So painful periods, you should not be cramping on your period. I mean, you have pulsations when you bleed, but having debilitating bleeds is actually not normal. It's quite common, but it's not normal. So it's like, how is your womb actually speaking to you, right? And then what about when you're not bleeding? Do you know when you're ovulating? Do you know what your luteal feels like? We're in luteal phase 14 to 10 days out of the month. Do you know, have you oriented yourself to your cyclic nature? What does follicular feel like? What is, you know, can you connect to the cervical mucus of ovulation? Right? Are you actually ovulating? So there's like these physical temperature checks
Mm.
that we can attune ourselves to be like, okay, what is the actual holistic health of my womb space into my body? Right? And she'll speak through over through ovarian cyst, right? Through, and it's so funny because, you know, I've worked with so many women at this point where, you know, they've gotten off birth control, they've taken IUDs out. I worked with one client, she took her IUD out about 3 months into working together. I didn't, you know, force her or anything. She was just like, I got this hit, I need to take my IUD out. I went to the doctor, I had it removed. She completely restructured her business. She like, you know, creates, you know, 6-figure months and is now about to launch like this whole way of, you know, marketing and branding and just like, I mean, it's genius. And it was because of this block that was in her body that, you know, was disconnecting her to creativity and to her own intuitive life force. And, you know, women who have had, you know, the most debilitating bleeds now come to me and they're like, my bleed is so easy. I mean, I feel it, I rest, I nourish myself, but it's not debilitating anymore. You know, and it's just like, I don't have, you know, those really intense PMS symptoms anymore where I'm hitting like bouts of depression or I, you know, am completely, you know, just like hiding away. Like I feel nourished, I feel good. Yes, I'm still in tune with my rhythmic cycle. And when it's time to go a bit slower, I listen to that and I nourish myself. But like, we're just not taught that. Like most of us were never initiated into ceremony when we started bleeding. It was just like, here's a box of tampons, here's a box of Midol, be on your way.
Anybody, because
Just,
it's something you have to be ashamed of. Like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
you would say that, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just so much there, but it's really fascinating. It's so cool to see just, you know, women who are no longer like a victim to what is naturally happening in the body and they just feel so empowered and just so connected to their bodies again. And it's so fascinating to see the ripple of that, whether it's the money, the clients, the love that comes in, you know, becoming mothers. Like some of my clients deeply desire to become mothers, and it's so beautiful to celebrate them once that happens, you know, just to create like these lives that they actually desire to create, and to also feel like nothing is, you know, to feel as though like the shoe's not going to drop, like nothing bad is going to happen. Just to feel safe in the goodness is a really fucking liberating feeling. Just to be like, yeah, I'm taken care of and I'm nourished and I'm good. And I get like, this is my set point. Like this is where I get to live from, is so liberating and freeing.
So what would you say, because then I want to get into, I don't want to steal too much of your time because we've done an hour already, a fascinating, amazing hour. Uh,
Yeah.
we're gonna go
We're
through like
good.
the office and how people can work with you. But if you had to give the first like three, or you choose the number of steps to start that connection and healing, what
Yeah.
would you say?
I would, start just doing daily like check-ins, just holding your womb just like we did earlier and just asking her like what is she needing from you and just beginning to attune yourself. It's something that you can do by yourself and just start to listen, like just see what's available for you and notice. And yeah, and then what I would say from there is, I feel like from there things kind of get unravel where it's like, okay, this is, maybe it's the inner child work, maybe it's the shadow work, maybe it's, the pleasure work, the safety work, like whatever that is going to come through. So you get to decide what that means for you. But, a lot of times, even in my private practice, that's the foundational work is actually listening to her and just connecting to her. And I would say the second thing is start tracking your cycles, not via an app, but through noticing like your cervical mucus and attuning yourselves to your mood, your energy levels, your emotions, and your bleed. Because most women are, again, we're outsourcing our own
Mhm.
intuitive wisdom and we're using apps to tell us when we're ovulating. And that's just not the truth. So I think that's a really empowering thing. And ovulation tells us our level of fertility, whether or not you want to become a mother or not. Fertility is something that all women hold, whether you hold a physical womb or you don't hold a physical womb, you still have access to, fertility and what you're birthing can be. It doesn't have to be a baby, it can be anything. It's your natural way of being. So that would be the second thing. And yeah.
Awesome. And quickly, the one that really interested me is was when you got your first day of your period, the ritual of reconnecting the first blood back to earth.
Yeah.
Correct. What if somebody lives in a big city? Is it like a plan?
Oh,
Are you gonna have the same or not?
yeah, you can do your house plants. So what I do is I use a cup. I mean, I have a 4-year-old, so I can't free bleed. You can use like the panties, like the
Mhm.
period panties now. But what I use is a cup, and I just take my cup and I'll store my blood in like an airtight jar. And usually, like day 3 or 4, I'll actually return my blood back to the earth because at that point, I mean, I'm kind of tuning in. So, like yesterday, for example, I knew I was about to start my bleed. I could just feel the way that my womb felt. I just know, like, at this point, I got it. And, so I, prepped my space, I cleaned up, my home, and when I was journaling last night, it was all about like the things that I was releasing and not bringing with me in 2023. And then what I was calling in for 2023, like what was coming in. And I really like felt the energetics of what this bleed was even before I started bleeding. So this morning when I wiped and I saw blood on, the tissue paper, I was like, okay, here it is. So I'll collect my blood, I'll take my blood and I use my blood in ritual in so many different ways, but um you basically dilute it with some water and then you can, pour it into your house plants. If you live in a busy city, maybe finding like a park locally and, just digging a little hole and just pouring it back into the earth that way. And yeah, I mean, you can do blood art, which is really powerful as well, where you take your blood and, you can do some artwork with that. And it's like one of my favorite things to do. And then I actually will use my blood sometimes as a face mask. And people are always like, you have great skin. I'm like, well, there's stem cells in your blood. And, you're just taking a shower and you let the wild warrior woman come out. And I explained this to I run a mastermind and I was explaining it to my mastermind clients because I teach them how to run their businesses from the womb and they're like how do you do a face mask and I'm like well I go into the shower and I'll take my cup and I just pat my face dry and I will just, put the blood on my face and I let it dry up, and, it drips down my breast, and it's really wild. And one of my clients was like, "Oh my gosh, it's like playing in the mud when you're a kid. Like it's just like so play." I'm like, "Yes, like it's just so playful and fun." I'm like, and that's why I'm 32 and I have skin of like a 20-year-old. Like it's just so great. So, yeah, so there's like so many different things that you can do to like create ritual with your blood, and um just to feel, because your blood speaks to you too. The color of your blood is really important to access your overall health. So that's another thing. If you're clotting a lot, you're usually releasing a lot of energetic imprints, and emotional discharge is what I, like to refer it to. So that's always like, okay, you're releasing a lot this bleed. And if there's a lot of clotting and it's not that like deep crimson red, then what I would say is, instead of using it for manifesting, use it just to simply release. Like, what are the limiting beliefs that you're releasing? What are the, emotional imprints, the generational coding of your mother that you're letting go of? Like, what are you actually releasing? And then when you have that like really luscious, red, then that's a beautiful, time to use the blood to manifest and to give it back to the earth and to set your intentions. Yeah, it's really a holy experience. Yeah.
I'm actually excited. I'm gonna wait for my period. Like I'm finally gonna be excited about having the period right now.
And yeah, and like that's the thing is I love, and everyone in my home, like my partner knows and my daughter knows. I taught my daughter the word Volvo when she was like 8 months old. Like she would point down there while I was wiping her, and she would say vulva. And my dad was like, "Why is my granddaughter saying vulva?" I'm like, "Because that's what it is. It's a vulva." And she obviously, when you have a little one, like there's no privacy. So she like sees me when I'm bleeding, and she knows like mommy's on her bleed. And she'll ask, she's like, "When am I gonna bleed, mommy?" I'm like, "Well, when you're a bit older, you'll bleed and we'll have a ceremony and it'll be beautiful." And my partner knows when I bleed, I like to go a bit slower and I like to be taken care of. So it's really beautiful because I get to receive in that way. Like it's such a beautiful practice in receiving and being taken care of as well. Like I don't have to do everything. Um, so yeah.
I mean, for me, it's a beautiful thing that when you're on your period or whatever, because I remember like even working a very highly managed and 90% of the people were men in managing. And it's like maybe you're a little bit rude or you're a little bit like vulnerable or whatever. They're like, "Are you on your period?" I'm like, "Yes, I am."
Mm,
And that's why I'm
yeah.
like this, because it's a lot of hormones going through and, like taking it as like, yes, I am. Not like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's something to be ashamed of. And since going through that work, like whenever I'm on my period, I listen to the emotions and I don't identify with them. I take care of them with compassion. It's like, I feel vulnerable and I love myself. Okay, I'll be vulnerable today. Like,
Yeah.
just everything that my body or my inner self with the hormones going through are asking for, just be compassionate towards yourself and not beat yourself up for feeling even like cranky. Whatever. You're cranky, you're feeling
Yeah.
cranky, your hormones ask you to feel like that. But with compassion and love for yourself, because that's what you need in that moment. And that's
Yeah.
like changing the
Yeah.
idea of being on a period and not bad anymore.
Yeah.
So working with you, if somebody's interested into doing this deep work, where do they
Yeah.
find you? What do you offer?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is Instagram at the dot pleasure dot priestess. I'm actually launching a YouTube channel in January, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, so right now, actually in 2023, I'm being called just to do a bit more group work as opposed to one-on-one coaching. So my one-on-one coaching is pretty limited right now. Um, uh, and I have a program called Labyrinth, and it is a 9-month group container that will be starting off probably February of 2023 is the way that I'm seeing it. And it really is the mysteries of the feminine, you know, remembering the stories of Mary Magdalene and the true story of her, um, and the feminine wisdom and, you know, sexual tantric energy and the wisdom of the womb. So that's a beautiful container to step into if you're like, okay, I want to understand, you know, the whys. I also want to understand how do I implement this now into my day to day. And, you know, it's 9 months, so it's meant to be integrated into your life. It's not meant to be like a quick, fast, like one hit program. it's, um, it's really you becoming embodied as a revolutionary feminine leader so that you can do this work in a way that feels good for you, because every woman has a different way of infusing womb wisdom into their medicine, like whatever it is that they're how they're being asked to offer this out into the world. And there's an in-person retreat with that, so it's really like it's just a delicious program. And the reason why it's called Labyrinth is because it's speaking to the spiral of the feminine and how even the spiral of the feminine journey and the feminine mysteries isn't perfect, right? It's, you know, we spiral and then we come back into the center and then we move back out and then we come back into the center, we move back out. So it's really speaking to this beautiful spiral energy of the feminine, of the womb, of the heart. And yeah, then I have a business mastermind for feminine leaders, and that's called Sacred Authority. And we're starting that as well. We just finished our first round in December. And this is for women who are wanting to learn how to run companies, sustainable, successful companies, um, from more of this feminine lens. So really understanding how to let, you know, your intuition lead, how to let your body lead, and then also having like the back end masculine support and structure so that you can be in your feminine essence, while scaling, while having like a really clear message. And so people know you. Like, in order to be an authority, people have to know that you are an expert at what you teach. So that would be the other way to work with me. And then on my website, I have a bunch of self-paced courses that you can dive into, workshops and, you know, master classes. There's also freebies on there. So there's a bunch of ways to kind of receive outside of the live programs.
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Faye.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much. Like, I feel this was so, I could say amazing, but it doesn't even explain what this brought to us and to everybody listening to it.
Yeah.
So appreciate
Thank you,
your
my
time
love.
and sharing with us all your knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. And well, I'll see you on Instagram. And I wish I don't know what
Yeah.
time it is, like a lovely day there because it's night here.
It is 11:52 a.m.
So I wish you a lovely day. And thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for watching this episode and getting till the end. If you're here, it means that this really was helpful for you. And that makes me so happy, because what I'm doing with this channel is to bring you anything and every tool possible to make you understand and give you like an umbrella of anything that you can need to really connect to yourself, to your authenticity, to get to know you from the deeper side of your spirit. Because it's not just about the creation, a program that has been given to you. Is just about getting out of it and really connected to your uniqueness, because you're unique. Each one of us, we're part of the same, but each one of us has got uniqueness to bring into this world, and this is why you're here. If you are going through your own personal journey and you want to connect really to your authenticity, you want to stop and getting out of your head and your sabotaging mechanism that you have, or eliminating the fears, or being scared of people judgment and always block you, or anything that you feel that is going to be pulling you back, and every time you feel to do 2 steps forward and you do 4 steps backwards, then the Spiritually Badass Rockstar is the coaching program for you. And I'm opening spaces up for one-on-one, and just remember, I don't accept many people, and this is true. and soon maybe I will close the doors. But go to www.spirituallybadassrocks.com. It's a program that helps you to transform, really from the inside out. I don't help you to create your life, I help you to create yourself, and by doing that, you really attract the life that you desire to you, because you are energy, and whatever energy you have inside of yourself is what you attract and project on the outside of you. So we will work together to really help you to connect to loving yourself for real, understanding how to put boundaries in your life without feeling guilty, without feeling that you're missing out on something, and especially really finding that confidence inside of yourself and connect to your spirit, to knowing who you are. And by that, once you know who you are and you feel good inside of yourself, everything by magic transform on the outside of yourself. And I'm here for you to help you to do this, because I did it myself. And I'm here now and I couldn't be happier. So I said, so if you like this, support this channel, because it's auto-supportive. Subscribe to this channel if you like this video, if you like this episode. Just share with your friends, with anybody that can think that could be helpful for them. And don't forget to press the like button. And I'll see you next time.